Before we begin the meeting, let me review the procedure for the meeting. The audience is reminded that this is a business meeting of the City Council. Therefore, clapping, cheering, and outbursts are not permitted. Speakers must complete a request to speak form located at the entrance to the council chamber. Submit your completed form to either the city clerk or the sergeant at arms. When your name has been called, use the microphone at the lectern on the audience's right and state your name and address. If you do not wish to publicly state your street address, you may state only your city or unincorporated Brevard County. Speak to City Council as a body. Do not address the mayor and City Council members individually. Be mindful of the timer at the front of the room and wrap up your comments before your speaking time ends. The following time limits will generally apply. Speaking times may be varied by the mayor with the approval of City Council. Public comments, most agenda items, and the consent agenda up to 3 minutes. Items designated as a public hearing and petitions, remonstrances, and communications up to 5 minutes. An applicant, representative, or person who has legal standing to support or oppose a quasi-judicial matter will be permitted enough time as reasonably determined by the City Council to create a record before the City Council. These matters generally include site plan, plat, zoning of property, conditional use, variance, building-related permit or appeal, abandon and vacate request, annexation, and other applications of law to specific properties. So thank you for joining us this evening, and I will give the invocation. If you wish to participate in the invocation, please stand. Let's bow our heads. Love and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good, of all gifts, and we thank you today for all your blessings. We ask that you will guide and direct our meetings so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Give us insight to lead with integrity that our decisions may reflect what is right and good. Bless our military men and women who continue to serve to protect our country. Bless our police department and firefighters who protect our community from harm's way every day. As always, bless our country and our leaders. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, Ms. Weiser.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Here.
Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Present.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Here.
Mayor Meehan.
And I here, and that's great. Next is A4, proclamations and presentations, and I have one today. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, proclamation proclaiming September 22nd, 2018 as Florida Institute of Technology Founders Day, and we have here Frank Kenny. Hi, would you please come up? Chief and Staff and Vice President for Government Relations, Office of the President, Florida Institute of Technology. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for.
Hi, Bino. I'll read the proclamation and we'll do it afterwards. Is that okay? Okay. All right. Proclamation, City of Melbourne, Florida, whereas Florida Institute of Technology, also Florida Tech, is a vibrant and integral member of the Space Coast community and is celebrating its 60th anniversary. And whereas the private nonprofit university founded in 1958 by Dr. Jerome Cooper has significantly contributed to the educational and cultural fabric of this region, this state, this nation, and beyond, currently boasting more than 60,000 alumni across the globe. And whereas Florida Tech students, faculty, staff, and alumni are actively engaged as recognized community leaders through a variety of educational, cultural, and civic outreach efforts. And whereas Florida Tech, a Tier 1 best national university, is ranked by U.S. News and World Report, celebrates diversity and inclusion and educates students from 120 countries. And whereas the university's core values of research to benefit all humankind, student success for a lifetime, and a good global citizenship are cherished hallmarks of the outstanding educational opportunities it offers. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Kathleen H. Meehan, Mayor, City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, do hereby proclaim September 22nd, 2018 as Florida Institute of Technology's Founders Day in the City of Melbourne, and congratulate the Florida Tech community on the occasion of the university's 60th anniversary and join in the celebration this important milestone. Witness my hand in the seal of the city this 12th day of September 2018. Kathleen H. Meehan, Mayor. Congratulations.
Very much.
Did you want to say a few words?
Just a few words, very briefly. We'll get a photograph.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to thank you and thank the council members for this recognition. Florida Tech's very proud to call Melbourne our home. It's hard to believe it's been 50 years. We're also very proud of our alumnus here, Mayor of Melbourne as well. And so we certainly are very excited about the 60th anniversary. In fact, as part of the celebration, we're going to actually be inviting the community on our campus the evening of the 22nd. We're going to have a fireworks display, which is the first for our university, starting at 8 o'clock. The city's been very cooperative in helping us get the permit required for that. We're very excited. Also, we'll be offering free ice cream for anybody that shows up. So we're hoping to show off our campus a little bit and thank the community for all that it does to help Florida Tech. I also want to thank you for doing some repaving there on University Boulevard right through our campus. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. I know dollars are very tight, but it means a lot to us. So we're very proud to be here tonight, very proud to be part of the community. Thank you for this recognition.
It's been a pleasure as a partnership in our community, so yeah, thank you. Okay, item A5, approval of the minutes of August 28, 2018 regular meeting. I'm going to pass this on to Ms. Weiser.
Thank you, Mayor. As you're aware, I sent a one-way communication to City Council this week regarding a request that additional comments be added to the minutes. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the minutes in Melbourne. What we prepare, they are summary minutes rather than a verbatim, which means that every single comment that's made by a council member is not included in the minutes. The city clerk's office attempts to capture what's important to each member as to why they voted for an item or against an item. We write the minutes for history, for the record, for future readers. If we actually followed Robert's Rules of Order, our minutes would contain action only, meaning they would only contain motions, votes, and direction from the body. I don't believe that action-only minutes are helpful. For example, 15 years from now, future staff and elected officials will look back at the minutes to determine why the City Council approved the public-private partnership with the hotel. If the minutes contained action only, they would not provide any insight. So I wanted to just frame that for your consideration. I also want to acknowledge that the minutes belong to you. Therefore, it's up to City Council to determine whether additional comments should be placed in the minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes as published be adopted, and it's my understanding that the member who was considering adding additional comments has withdrawn her request.
Okay.
So I return it to City Council for its consideration.
All right. All right, so council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Moore.
I have a question, and then I will make a motion, so that we are able at this time to approve the minutes as presented from the August 28th meeting. Is that correct? Without the correction?
It's a council decision whether to add additional comments. At this point, if there are members who want additional comments added, you would just gain the floor and tell the mayor what those comments are. Staff's recommendation is to approve them as published. It's council's decision at this point.
But did I understand you to say that the council person has withdrawn her request for that addition?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
I will then so move that the minutes as presented in the August 28th, 2018 regular meeting of the Melbourne City Council are approved as they are printed,
A second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of the August 28, 2018 regular meeting by Ms. Moore, second by Vice Mayor Minus. Discussion.
No, the only thing I would say, Mayor.
Yeah, Mr.
no,
Alfrey.
Thank you for the summary. Thank you for that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor,
Yeah, Vice Mayor Minus.
I'd just like to add, I want to thank our city clerk. We do have the best city clerk in the whole wide world, and she does capture what we say. She captures based on Robert's Rules of Order, and I commend her for that. So,
I'll give you an
Thank you.
amen on that.
Okay.
I second that, amen.
All right, so are we ready to pass the collection plate at this
Yes.
point?
Yes.
Or- Okay, all right.
Hallelujah.
It would be very little. All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 6 is the city manager's report. Mr. McNeese, you're on.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Just a couple quick newsy things that are breaking to pass along to you. You'll probably be happy to know that I signed today a permit agreement for a Veterans Day parade. The application was put in by American Legion Post 163, so that permit has been signed. That event is back on the rails. I know you're glad to hear that. Second thing, just a piece of information that comes to us this week based on April 1st updates of something called the Bureau of Economic and Business Research. The city of Melbourne population, not including prison inmates, which I don't think we have any of those anyway, is 82,010. So we're over 82,000. And seems like just yesterday we went over 80. Well,
give us that number again, please.
80,010. No, 82.
minute.
I'm sorry,
82,000.
82,010. Right.
Okay.
Wow, that is.
So
All
we're
right, and that was based on the Bureau of,
Bureau of Economic and Business Research.
okay. All right. Any other,
Yes, Mayor, I
comments?
have a
Yeah,
question.
Ms. Lopez.
Yeah. How about the holiday parade? Have they submitted an application yet?
And I learned today that they've apparently got some of their money committed. Ms. Weiser, is there any new information there?
the Christmas parade?
The
Okay,
light
so
parade.
yes, we do have a completed application for the Melbourne Light Parade, and that was submitted within the past few business days. At the time of submittal, the applicant indicated to us that she did not have any funding secured at this point. However, Mayor Meehan learned today,
I called her.
let you speak for
And-
what you
and
learned today.
She secured $5,000, but she's still struggling.
Excellent. Good, I'm glad.
So she needs all the help she can get. She's competing with Vieira Parade and the Palm Bay Parade. And the reason is because they give out like gift certificates and little awards for the best, I guess, float, the best, whatever they contest. So she, so she's needing more money.
Mayor,
Yeah, Vice Mayor Minus.
what is the total amount that they need?
I'm not sure of the total. I know the city used to give them $7,000 every year, and then she would raise additional money, and she would always make it. But without that $7,000 from the city, it's tough.
Madam Mayor, I think
yeah,
it was around $17,000, but that also included the prize money that she would give to the bands for the best band, money for the best float, that include prize money as well, the $17,000.
Yeah, she didn't give out prize money. Yeah,
That's kind of what I heard from her, but okay.
yeah, she's telling me
Maybe that's
no.
what she's
Hoping.
hoping
She
to
would
do.
like to do that,
Right.
but, yeah, she's not able to accomplish that. Okay, so any further comments? All right, seeing none, this is item 7, public comments. Do I have any sign-up sheets? All right, thank you, Ms. Weiser. Eric Elbrock.
Eric V. Ellebrock, 1948 Tyler Avenue, lifelong resident, City of Melbourne. That budget hearing was basically the preliminary budget, the first hearing of that was painless. I've seen budget hearings back in the council chambers, when they had the black and white tile on the floors. Those budget hearings went on to like 1 o'clock in the morning, and there were threats of bodily violence, and, people's cars got burned up. But This was, think about this, and all I can say is if, a budget is signed within the city of Melbourne that, gets rid of fluoridation, that's nothing but a bow to the John Birch right. Okay. Always happens to me. I have a great plan of things I want to say, and something comes up right beforehand. I cannot let this pass. Unlike other people in this room, I am not a graduate of FIT. However, I've attended more time at FIT back in the day, long before they had locks on the doors. I could tell you long about my involvement. The first time I ever saw 2001: A Space Odyssey was in the Gleason Auditorium. I could tell you stories about things I did in the old FIT hangar. I mean, it's really, I go way back. However, this is the school that gave an honorary degree to the guy who invented the hydrogen bomb. This is the school that gave an honorary degree to a guy who was formerly a major in the SS, okay, and who was investigated for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and should have been at Nuremberg. This is the school, the flight program, where allegedly the guy who sank the Sheffield got his primary flight. We can go on, but there's so much DARPA money that goes into that school, and by DARPA money, I mean Defense Application Research Project Administration. I remember back in the day when they had leprocytic armadillos over there, and they were trying to weaponize leprosy. And let's be honest, we all know that the Olin Corporation is basically founded by a munitions manufacturer, and if I was a munitions manufacturer, I'd love to have an engineering school in my back pocket. I have one question. Are they now urine testing the football team? Let's hope they are, because you don't want football players who are playing, under the influence of marijuana. And with the recent arrest of an FIT, blah, 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 we won't get into that, but let's hope they're urine testing their team. I remember the Rathskeller, when the Rathskeller served booze. If they would get rid of that policy that they inflicted about, no alcohol on campus, to make sure that certain Muslim countries kept sending their students there, we wouldn't have this problem with, rowdiness downtown. Of course, we wouldn't have any downtown at all, So FIT, the best thing that could happen to FIT, please, God, let it become a member of the state university system. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ellebrock. Next is Joe Reese. Mr. Reese, I just need your name and city or unincorporated.
Joe Reese, and it's 1305 Rivermont Drive in Melbourne. So I'm here in reference to Spring Creek, the canal behind my house. The last time I was here, the city mayor, the council, and all the residents heard the manager say that there are no plans to dredge Spring Creek. And when I left, it made it seem like there was no responsibility from the city to need to clean up after itself. That wasn't always the case. Through a lot of research I had to do to obtain a permit to put a seawall in, I read a bunch of documents. I brought a few of those with me. Some of the people that used to work here and some of the people that still work here, they used to beg the St. John's and all the other people you have to speak with to get permission to keep Spring Creek and Elbow Creek cleaned up year after year. So I was going to read an example. This is from the Division Director of Environmental Resource Compliance at St. John's. Or this is to them. The utilities engineer at the time was Jennifer Spangoli, and she specifically requested to dredge a 500-foot section of the creek back to historic cross sections because silt had built up over time. The previous permit information was approved and the correspondence is enclosed. And it says dredging qualifies under this exemption. And then it lists a whole long laundry list of reasons it qualifies. There's a second example from the city of Melbourne. This is from Rory A. Dittmer, who was the assistant superintendent at the time for streets and drainage. And they said, as the attached documents show, both areas have, and they're talking about Oboe Creek and Spring Creek. They used to get done together. That they have historically been maintained and channelized. As the property owners are anxious for the city to begin these projects, a prompt review is appreciated. If questions arise, please do not hesitate to contact my office. I look forward to hearing from you. So that's where my research led. I can keep citing examples, but I'm going to run out of time.
Well, Mr. Reese, let me find out from Mr. McNeese, do we have any update on this issue?
My understanding is that staff's been working upstream solutions to keep the silt level down, and Ms. Lamb is here, and that's the most I can tell you at this moment. That's the last. And is there anything beyond that,
Ms. Lamb?
Jenny?
That's,
Yeah, so staff is
so we
engaged
are
in that
working
process.
on solving the issue.
Mayor.
Yeah. Ms. Moore?
I know Councilman Alfrey has spoken about this. I have spoken to Ralph Regensberger. I think he's left. He was here. And I knew you were coming this evening, and I'm sorry that he's not here to answer some of this. But before the meeting started, I asked him where we were with this. And he said they're trying to get permission to go, I'm going to call it upstream. I don't know if it's downstream, Joey, you can correct me. It would be off of Aurora.
Okay.
Is that upstream or downstream? Does it matter?
That'd be upstream.
Okay, upstream.
Yeah, it matters. That's the whole point.
Okay.
Everything coming down.
Well, on private
No,
property.
I'm with you. That's it. It's everything that's coming in up there off Aurora
That's right.
from the
And-
heavy development,
And
industrial
it's-
park.
And this is private property, and so we're trying to get permission. This is what Ralph told me this evening, to go on that property and address this, because it's my understanding that this person has filled in a portion of this, and that's what's basically causing your problem. But that owner was not easily willing to let anybody onto his property. But Mr. Regelsberger is working on that so that he can get in there and assess what is going on. We understand your problem. I've been down to see it several occasions. And so hopefully, within the coming months, our city's going to be able to do something for you on this. But I would suggest that you call Mr. Regelsberger or Jenny, and he can give you an update on what he's attempting to do.
Ms. Lamb, do you have anything added to?
Both engineering staff and public works staff are working this issue, and there's a variety of issues that are going along with it. One of the one is the one that Councilmember Moore mentioned. There was a drainage path through the property sometime a long time ago. It was filled over with a makeshift pipe system, and that started caving in, and most of that pipe system is out now. It's collapsed. That's caused a lot of the problem with that. Both Ralph and I have been trying to work with that property owner to cost share to put piping in there so we do not get the sediment to continue to go into Spring Creek. So that's a project we're both jointly working on. I know Public Works is looking at a couple different areas in the upstream area on what can be done and how we can prevent erosion. And then also from is part of what engineering is looking at is if we can find a place in the in-between to possibly put an additional, either a baffle box or some type of sediment trap in there to catch the water before it goes into Spring Creek. We thought we had a preliminary design worked out, and the more we looked at it, it was not going to work. So we sort of have set that aside, and we're starting from scratch on another idea on what we can do. So it's being worked on from several different levels of staff on what we can do to fix the problem. The main problem with the one that you mentioned, Councilmember Moore, is that we don't have easements over that property, so we can't just go in and do the work on the property.
Exactly.
All right, so
exactly.
you have to have the permission of the owner.
Mayor,
Yeah, Mr. Alfrey.
real quick, how long has this been? 4 years?
Three plus, yeah.
Because I
maybe up
remember
to 4.
you came here about 2 years ago, and it's when
Yeah,
I just got on council.
It's been a while.
I think that's unacceptable. Let me ask you another question, and I haven't spoken to you tonight at all, but how many times has the city called and said this is what we're doing?
Well, no, they haven't. Once, twice we've spoken, but it didn't go anywhere. I don't care about all those other projects. Why don't we just get started back on for 43 years, there was a once a year maintenance dredging that was done, and then figure out what you need to do to fix it later. I mean, I'm no engineer, but you need a baffle box. That's obvious. All that other stuff, it's going to happen.
Well, and back to what I was saying, a baffle box would likely solve the issue, and we'd be done with this. It could be cleaned out every year, because it sounds like you guys are spinning your wheels on dealing with property owners upstream.
I'll let you go in my backyard and clean it every year.
But I'm not very happy when someone comes before council and it's been 4 or 5 years, and it's almost, it's very frustrating, and our citizens shouldn't feel that way. And the council members shouldn't continuously get the phone calls and promise somebody something that it's going to be fixed, and it's going to be fixed. To me, that's not good government. And I'm just asking you nicely, one time, get the damn thing fixed.
I think from a public works perspective, and Jennifer, you might be able to fill in some of the gaps. I think it was dredged in the past, as he spoke, but when you start looking at our budget and we have failing pipes that are collapsing and roads are caving in versus a creek being dredged, and there are decisions made by both staff and council along the way. It's been a very long time since it was dredged. I think the dredge that was spoken about, that Jennifer's letter was mentioned, was in response to a direct blowout of a pipe, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, there was two things. Jennifer Spagnoli, utilities engineer. I originally submitted tried to dredge and was told by the Water Management District that it's waters of the state. We would have to have easements from every property owner in order to get in there. So we did not do any dredging at that time, and I've been here since 2009. And it was shortly after that we tried to do that. After multiple times working with the Water Management District, we were able to go in and remove a specific amount that we knew had washed out during Fay. And we were only allowed to take that material out, is what we knew had happened during the storm. And they did it as an emergency where they gave us permission without the easements, but it's considered waters of the state. And they suggested that Spring Creek condos, since they were the biggest entity, go ahead and submit the permit application if they actually wanted it dredged. So they did not give us permission to go in and dredge it, or to continue to do it. Whether it happened years ago, that was different, but that request that I made was not approved, only for the material that we knew had gone in there after Fay.
Jenny, I think it might help everyone. Can you clarify a little bit, what is the nature of this waterway that we're talking about? Is it private property? Is it water of the state? Is it a city stormwater conveyance? Whose is it?
It is waters of the state. So anything we do in there, we have to have permission to go in. We have to have a permit to go in and do that. And at this point, I think the only way they would give us a dredging permit, I mean, obviously we were unsuccessful in getting one to clean the whole area out, is if we went in and said, we've eliminated all of the additional sediment from coming through this area. And so it's very important, and they look at that as part of the permitting process. They're not going to let us come in and dredge waters of the state if we're just going to be back in 3 or 4 years because we haven't stopped the source of it. So stopping the source is the key. We have thought about baffle boxes. I mentioned that. That does seem like the no-brainer, but where are we going to buy an entire parcel and put that baffle box on there? We're looking at right-of-way where it could possibly fit. We had another idea that didn't involve a baffle box, so it was less expensive to construct and could be done along maybe through an easement area. So like I said, we're not just sitting here doing nothing. We are trying to come up with solutions. We're trying to work with the property owners on it. Public Works is trying to get dredging permits for it.
So
So,
Jenny, one other question. Is this waterway a part of the city's stormwater conveyance system?
no, it is not considered part of the stormwater conveyance system.
So they're trying to help and trying to get in there, but this is all to benefit the private property owners, which is great, and we're doing that.
Does the St. John's Water Management District, would they be the ones giving us the permission to work through this, on the state lands? Who are we looking to get permission from?
I believe we have to get a permit for both St. John's and Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
this letter says you guys should have retained it as it constitutes use of sovereign submerged lands, the St. John's Water Management District. Please be aware that you are bound by these conditions. And it says to keep this, and looks like there's a lot of paperwork here that they've approved it. So maybe we should resubmit this paperwork. But
I believe that was under previous requirements from when it was done, probably in the late 90s, I think mid to late 90s is the last time they readily gave us permission to go in there.
All right, so, Mr. McNeese, is there any way we can just have a meeting and instead of Mr.?
Absolutely. The only reason I asked Jenny the questions I have is because the parents is out there that this is something that's the city's responsibility to take care of, and we're not doing it. And I think what we're doing is to try to help Mr. Reese.
because I've watched the city dump dirt to fill in the canal bank. The property owner didn't do that. The sign that says City of Melbourne, no trespassing, that they went in there and they dumped dirt to fill in the bank, and they didn't recapture the dirt that they dumped. I agree that other places are losing sediment, but that's not what I see in the last 3 years.
All right, so,
And Mayor,
yeah, Mr. Alfrey.
I think a lot of this could be resolved through better communication. And I would ask that if we have to, City Manager, maybe you and I can go out there, take a walk, meet with Mr. Reese and see if we can't, even if we have to have someone else, we send him to somebody else. I don't like someone coming here year after year and not being put in the right direction. And I honestly feel he has not been put in the right direction. And maybe we did maintain it years ago, and under his, under the assumption of us doing it, he thinks we're supposed to still do it. I know permits change. I know there are different requirements from different state and governmental entities, but just saying we're working on it, to me, does not suffice and makes me happy. And if we can meet out there or something, let's just get this taken care of.
I think Jenny and Ralph and I, all three, would be glad to meet you out there with Mr. Reese and walk through it.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
All right, very good, Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Mayor.
you for coming
Thank you,
up here.
Council.
All right. I'll close the public comments and go into our agenda. Item B, unfinished business. Item 8, ordinance number 2018-39. Miss Allison Dolly.
Yes, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, providing for the vacation of a 25-foot public ingress-egress utility and drainage easement that runs along the east property lines of lots 4 and 5, Deer Lakes Commercial Subdivision, located west of Wickham Road and south of Deer Lakes Drive, 5300 and 5400 North Wickham Road, making findings, providing for conditions of approval, providing an effective date, and providing an adoption schedule.
All right, thank you, Miss Dolly. This is under engineering, Miss Jenny Lamb.
Thank you. This abandon and vacate request, it's a second reading. I know the first reading we explained what the map was actually showing because it is slightly confusing. But basically, and I'll just try to do it as quick as possible, but basically what we're doing is the location of where the ingress-egress easement was previously located when it was platted is not a place that an ingress-egress roadway or a driveway can be built. So we are vacating the ingress-egress easement, and we are relocating it and they are going to be giving us a new location that fits with the proposed development for both lots 4 and 5. So staff recommends approval of ordinance number 2018-39.
Thank you, Miss Lamb. This is, any questions for Miss Lamb? Seeing none, this is quasi-judicial. Any disclosures? Nope. Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Do I have any sign-up sheets? I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Miss Moore.
request approval of ordinance number.
Miss Moore? I heard Miss Moore.
I'm sorry.
I move for approval of ordinance number 2018-39.
Second.
I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2018-39 by Ms. Moore, second by Mr. Thomas. Discussion? Seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus. Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 9 is ordinance number 2018-40, Florida Counseling Centers. Ms. Allison Dolly.
An ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, providing for the repeal of ordinance number 2012-26, amending the official zoning map as it relates to the general zoning ordinance number 2005-120 by granting a conditional use to allow a private hospital on a 0.47 plus or minus acre portion of an overall 0.78 plus or minus acre developed site zone C1A, professional offices and services district, located on the east side of Audubon Drive, north of Avenue B and south of Avenue A, 105 to 107 and 109 to 111 Audubon Drive. Providing that conditions of approval, providing that the conditional use granted herein may be revoked by City Council if the conditions of approval are not met, providing that the property shall be designated on the official zoning map by the symbol CC1A, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is under Community Development. Ms. Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, I did want to point out, City Council had asked during first reading for the applicant to provide a rendering of the proposed building for this facility, and that was included in your package this evening. And other than that, staff doesn't have anything further to add.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dittmer. Any questions for Ms. Dittmer?
Mayor,
Yeah, Ms. Moore.
we did receive a blue memo
Yes.
in our packet this evening, and I'm wondering if the person that sent it to us is in the audience. Gail D.
Ms. Moore, I've got 3 sign-up sheets, so if,
Okay, well, I'm just,
yeah,
if that person is here, that was just a general question.
okay. All right. So this is, any other further discussion? All right, so this is quasi judicial. Any disclosures? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I have 3 sign-up sheets. Dr. Mike Rosenvalley is here. Did you want to say a few words, or you just want to be recognized? If there's any, okay. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Second is, I believe, ADA, I don't know, it's a lot of scribble from Avocado.
That's Adam.
Adam? All right, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Adam, okay. I don't know what that, okay, and Eric Ellerbrock. All right. I'm sorry? No, I recognize your name.
Yeah. I've done a little bit of research here. The corporate partners that Florida Counseling Centers is planning to partner with as far as finding treatment, long-term treatment facilities, they've got a pretty good rep. They're going to make some money here. I still am very uncomfortable with the fact that, they're not going to be taking Myers or Marchman Acts or anything like that this is strictly an insurance-covered detox. The alternative for that is, how detox is dealt with in certain county lockup facilities. Oh, you're detoxing from heroin? We'll make sure you get a cell with a drain on the floor. People die from detox, as I don't need to tell you. It happens in our community quite frequently, but not from so much detox as just abuse of the various types of drugs. We already do have an indigent detox, or at least I'm hoping that Circle still does accept. And remember, involuntary detox is different from Baker Act, which is involuntary examination for mental health purposes. Circles accepts both of those, of course, but this is a needed thing. I mean, no matter what the motivation for the person providing the service, it needs to, we need this. Okay, at least it's a start. It's better than nothing. Now, unfortunately, The neighborhood is one of the oldest residential neighborhoods in the city of Melbourne. I mean, houses in there date back to the 20s, okay? And like old neighborhoods, like my neighborhood that was built in the 60s, it's going through change and gentrification. Nobody had, when they built, the reason the roads are Audubon Road is so narrow is because it was made for Model Ts, okay? But, this is it's an evolution of housing. This is what happens to neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods turn into a different zoning base entirely, and some neighborhoods gentrification. It's the ultimate change. And the older the neighborhood gets, the more radical the change is going to be. Okay, it's a simple. That's just a rule of logic that I've always found that eventually the homes that today are selling for $250,000. 100 years from now, they'll probably be looking at having a rehab move into their backyard, or industrial applications, medical applications in their neighborhood. It's a change. When I was growing up, some of the trendiest addresses are not very trendy now. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ellerbrock. I will close the public hearing, bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Vice Mayor Minus.
I move for approval of ordinance number 2018-40 based upon the findings and conditions contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2018-40 based upon the findings and conditions contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum by Vice Mayor Minus, and I believe it was Mr. Thomas seconded. Discussion?
Mayor,
Yeah, Ms. Lopez.
I just wanted to say that I do support this center being established because, first of all, it's needed in the community, it's needed in the city of Melbourne, and they are already treating alcoholic addictions. So also, they do provide medical services while they're trying to get off these drugs as well. And not just that, they are not allowed to leave the premises. So I'm comfortable with that. And also, I checked the Better Business Bureau for the partnering journey, Pure, and I didn't see anything at all against them. So I feel comfortable with this.
All right. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Good luck. Item number 10, ordinance number 2018-41 and ordinance number 2018-42, Florida Power and Light, Sarno Transmission Substation. So Ms. Dolly will read the ordinances together, but we'll vote separately.
Ordinance number 2018-41, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the official zoning map as it relates to the general zoning ordinance number 2005-120 by changing the zoning classification from R2T, Planned Residential Development for Mobile Home Parks, to RA, Residential Holding District, on a 0.2 plus or minus acre portion of an overall 30.56 plus or minus acre property located on the south side of Aurora Road, east of Interstate 95 and west of John Rhodes Boulevard, 4735 Aurora Road, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule. Ordinance number 2018-42. An ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the official zoning map as it relates to the general zoning ordinance number 2005-120 by granting a conditional use to allow the expansion of a public utility service facility on a 3.93 plus or minus acre portion of a partially developed 30.56 plus or minus acre property zoned RA Residential Holding District located on the south side of Aurora Road, east of Interstate 95 and west of John Rhodes Boulevard, 4735 Aurora Road, providing for site plan approval, providing for conditions of approval, providing that the conditional use granted herein may be revoked by City Council if the conditions of approval are not met, providing that the property shall be designated on the official zoning map by the symbol CRA, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is under Community Development. Ms. Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, staff doesn't have anything further to add on second reading.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dittmer. Any questions for Ms. Dittmer? This is quasi-judicial. Do we have any disclosures? Seeing none, this is public hearing. I have two sign-up sheets. Mr. Mel Scott. Okay, and Eric Ellebrock.
Last one for the night.
You promise?
Yes. Yeah, my word. And that's pretty good. Eric V. Ellebrock, 1948 Tyler Avenue, Melbourne, Florida. Has anybody really took the time out to study the vintage FPL substation that's directly behind the Backstreet Bar? You know, I've spent plenty of time at the Backstreet, and I've had plenty of opportunity to really look at that substation. And that thing is a vintage marvel of 1950s electrical industrial design engineering. There was actually a school of art named after that. There's a form of industrial study that, you know, it's a blend of engineering, structural engineering, and electrical engineering all together, and it's progressive. I cannot wait to see what this new one looks like, because if the moon's right and everything's cool and the music is good at the Backstreet, it could look like Orson Welles' Martians have landed down there. Because I mean, you know, but in all honesty, FPL has been very good about maintaining the security, the fencing around these substations. One more victim of growth. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Moore.
for 10A, I move for approval of ordinance number 2018-41 based upon the findings contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2018-41 by Ms. Moore, second by Mr. Alfrey. Discussion? Seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote, second reading.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 10B, council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Lopez.
approval of ordinance number 2018-42 with site plan approval based upon the findings and conditions contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2018-42 by Ms. Lopez, second by Ms. Moore. Discussion? Seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote, second reading.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 11, ordinance number 2018-43, Florida Tech Alumni Center, Miss Allison Dolly.
Yes, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the official zoning map as it relates to the general zoning ordinance number 2005-120 by granting a conditional use to allow a school use in a single-family low-density residential zoning district on a 0.928 plus or minus acre portion of the developed Florida Tech North Campus zoned R1 AAA, single-family low-density residential, located on the west side of Country Club Road, north of Amherst Avenue, and south of Edgewood Drive, 2508, 2600, and 2626 Country Club Road. Providing for site plan approval, providing for conditions of approval, providing that the conditional use granted herein may be revoked by City Council if the conditions of approval are not met, providing that the property shall be designated on the official zoning map by the symbol CR1AAA, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is under Community Development. Ms. Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, staff doesn't have anything further to add on second reading.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dittmer. Any questions for Ms. Dittmer? Seeing none, this is quasi-judicial. Any disclosures? Seeing none, public hearing. I have no sign-up sheets. I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Thomas.
move for approval of ordinance number 2018-43 with site plan approved based upon the findings and conditions contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2018-43 by Ms. Thomas, second by Vice Mayor Minus. Discussion? Seeing none. Those, we're going to call a roll call vote on second reading.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. We are now in new business. Item 12, Hurricane Irma drainage repairs, project number 18518. And this is Jennifer Spinoli. Welcome.
Jennifer Spagnoli, Utilities Engineer. This is for a construction contract award for Hurricane Irma drainage repairs project to Don Lucetti Construction, Inc. of Melbourne, Florida. 5 bidders attended the pre-bid meeting, and then we received 2 bids on September 4th. The low bidder is Don Lucetti Construction with a bid amount of $1,494,000. Project includes replacing corrugated metal pipes ranging in sizes from 24-inch to 84-inch with reinforced concrete pipes and installing fabric form for erosion control at University Boulevard, Brown Avenue, Cedarwood Drive, Espanola Way, Quail Trail, and Robin Hood Drive. Initial funding for the project was, we had an initial estimate back in February, and that estimate was then updated by FEMA to $1,300,676. But the low bid came in at $1,494,000, which exceeds the revised cost estimate by $193,324. However, FEMA will cover the adjusted cost estimates, and the city is only required for their small portion, and the city expects to receive the rest of the money, with the city's total share being $186,750. $121,750 was already appropriated, and $65,000 needs to be transferred from capital improvement appropriated funds savings. So request approval of resolution number 3776 and request award of construction contract to Don Lucetti Construction, Inc. of Melbourne, Florida in the amount of $1,494,000 for Hurricane Irma drainage repairs project 18518.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Mayor,
Yeah, Ms. Lopez.
do we have any idea when we will get reimbursed for this amount?
It will be, I think, an ongoing as the work gets completed, but this work's going to be completed in a very short period of time, and it has to be completed by April.
How long does it usually take FEMA to give us back the money? Would you say? Experience.
We don't have.
We never know.
Long time.
I don't. Yeah.
Years.
Years? Wow. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Spinoli? All right, seeing none, council, what is your pleasure? Wait a minute,
Mayor?
excuse me, I need to, no, don't need no public. Yeah, Mr. Thomas.
Recommend approval of resolution number 3776.
All right, I have a motion for approval of resolution number 3776 by Mr. Thomas, second by Mr. Alfrey. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 12B, council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Mr. Alfrey.
recommend approval of construction contract to Don Lucetti Construction, Inc. of Melbourne, Florida in the amount of $1,494,000 for the Hurricane Irma drainage repairs, project number 18518.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of item 12B by Mr. Alfrey, second by Ms. Moore. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 13, ordinance number 2018-44, Ms. Allison Dolly.
An ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, providing for the vacation of an 18-foot-long portion of a 15-foot-wide public utility easement that runs through the middle of property at 32 Bounty Lane, making findings, providing an effective date, and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is engineering, Ms. Jenny Lamb.
Yes, this abandon and vacate request is for an 18-foot-long portion of a 15-foot-wide public utility easement that runs through the middle of 32 Bounty Lane, located in Oceanside Village subdivision. To give a brief history lesson, in 1985, when what is now Oceanside Village was created as the Waterside Down project, some of the infrastructure was put in place, some of the easements were put into place. That is when this easement was put into place, was in 1985. Later along later through the process, they ended up having to reconstruct some of the roadways. They altered where they were having different parts of the development and what type of development it would be. And when the water line was actually relocated as part of the Oceanside Village Phase 2B development in 2004. Unfortunately, as part of that development, the original easement did not get vacated. I think some of that might be because it didn't go through a platting process, because this later became townhome lots and it wasn't platted that way. And so the city had no idea that easement was still there until the owner tried to sell the house, and he could not sell his townhome because there's an easement running right underneath the middle of his house. So we are staff, and we consulted with the city attorney's office on this too, but we're moving forward with this one because he has an imminent sale, and he cannot sell his home until we vacate this portion. It's unused. There's nothing else in there other than the grouted in old water main. And so it's out of service. But staff has since decided that we are going to approach all the property owners that have this old easement running underneath it, because there's no reason for us to be going through this each individual lot as they sell, or if it comes up as part of the sale of their home. So we will be approaching in the next month or so, and then it takes time. We'll have to get everybody on board because we do need their consent in order to vacate the easement under their property. So I just wanted to let you know that now that we're aware of the problem, that we will work to fix so it doesn't happen to other owners in this area. We did run this through our normal process per city code section 52-100B, and it did not, we determined it did not have an adverse impact on public health, safety, welfare, and the interest of the public. Recommend approval of ordinance number 2018-44.
Thank you, Ms. Lamb. Any questions for Ms. Lamb? I'm glad we're reaching out to the other owners too. All right, so this is quasi-judicial. Do we have any disclosures? All right, this is a public hearing. Any sign-up sheets? Nope. Close the public hearing, bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor.
Ms. Moore.
I move for approval of ordinance number 2018-44.
Second.
I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2018-44 by Ms. Moore, second by Mr. Thomas. Discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 14 is the consent agenda. Ms. Weiser notified me that there is no removals. So council, what is your pleasure
Mayor.
on A through D? Vice Mayor Minus.
I move for approval of items A through D.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda A through D by Vice Mayor Minus, second by Mr. Alfrey. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 16, let me get right to it. Is the discussion of amendment to the Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA Facade Improvement Program. Ms. Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, if council recalls, back in May and June, council had considered several facade improvement grants on their agenda, and several council members at that time expressed some desire to look at adding an additional requirement to the program that would require a property owner to retain the property for at least 5 years or so, or they would need to repay the grant. Council at that time asked us to take this idea to the 3 CRA advisory committees and gather their feedback, which staff did. And I want to first just walk you through where we've been with our facade improvement grants over the years. The downtown CRA started in 2011, and then Babcock and O'Galley a few years after that. Out of the total 54 facade improvement grants that the 3 CRAs have completed, only 6 of those actually changed hands in less than a 5-year period to any unrelated party. There were others that were a change to the same company, a name change. There were a few of those. But there were 3 in the Babcock CRA and 3 in the downtown CRA. And those properties all, as you can recognize, the Wendy's and the Longtime Sillers, those all continued as they were. They didn't really change, but they did actually change hands. So out of the 54 over those 3 years, there were a total of 6 that would fall into the category of having to repay the grant amount if council were to change that. I did just want to show you just a couple of visuals of what our facade improvement program, has accomplished over the years. This is a property that's in the O'Galley area on the south side of O'Galley Boulevard. One of the significant facade improvements that did occur, and I'll tell you, particularly in this case, the fact that the city had the facade improvement program and the available money was one of the impetuses for this property owner to do this improvement. So you can see the before and after there, and then I also have one in our downtown Melbourne on the South US 1 corridor. This is the next to the island tile, and you can see the before picture. It was a really not real pretty structure for many, many years. And through the facade improvement program, they were able to utilize that. And you can see what we have today looks significantly better. So we went to each of the 3 CRA advisory committees. All 3 of them unanimously voted and recommended to not change the guidelines and to not implement a requirement for a property owner to repay. Some of their comments that I did list in the staff memo that they made, and they all sort of made a lot of the same comments even over the 3 CRAs. That the intent of the program is really to improve the aesthetics and the look of the building to enhance the CRA. That was the intent of the program. That the grant amounts have been very small in dollar value compared to the private investment that's actually occurred on those properties. They're concerned that the proposed change would make it particularly harder for small businesses, particularly if they're not the property owner, because you're then going to ask the property owner to sign a lien for a tenant for improvements, to that tenant, and that will get complicated for the small businesses. And they were concerned that the lien on the property would dissuade the businesses from making some of these improvements. As I had said earlier, these improvements have incentivized some of the property owners to actually make these improvements. So with that, I'll leave it to council for your discussion. If there is any proposed change to the guidelines, staff would have to prepare that and bring it back to council.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dittmer. So council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
All right, so Ms. Lopez.
I still stand with the idea that if we're giving a business owner $20,000 to fix their building, they could at least own it for 5 years. Because I don't want them selling the property before then and then gaining the capital gain from the $20,000 plus that we've given them.
Yeah, Mayor?
Mr. Alfrey?
Yes, I actually have to agree. I'm a business owner and I own commercial property, and I'm not in a CRA, and I can probably pull up 1,000 pictures of regular business owners who are not in a CRA who fix up their business and their building. All I'm really asking for is that, they keep it for a certain amount of time, and even if we were to prorate over 5 years, that they give that taxpayer money back, because at the end of the day, it's still taxpayer money that we're using to fix up a building, and there's no requirement right now. They could get a matching grant, turn around and sell it, and keep the gain. So that's all I'm asking.
All right. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, I also pretty much agree that these facade improvements don't need to be paid for with taxpayer dollars, but since we're doing this, I agree that those that do get the dollars for those improvements, they need to retain it for 5 years. So I think that's something that we need to continue to pursue.
All right.
And one more.
So, Mr. Alfrey?
Let me go back and see. My initial thought was I was going to ask to end the facade program, and I'm already coming into the process of going. I want to compromise. I want to work, and this is still a good program for the CRAs, and it does do good. So all I'm asking is not not technically having to end it, but even do a prorate every year. It's 20% that you get credited toward. And so if they're not stuck for 5 years to not be able to sell, they can go up, own it 3 years, I owe back 40%. And because they would be getting that money more likely in a gain.
All right, so Well, I disagree. I think it's a good program. It's up to the CRAs, and so I'm going to support this program. So, anyone else?
Mayor?
Yeah, Vice Mayor
Hey,
Myers.
I read this extensively also, and definitely about the three boards, the CRA boards, on their recommendation. And since they're the boards, and this is the recommendation that they made, then I would support what they said. Also, the pictures that were shown, even the one here that's on the monitor, if it had not been for a facade program, it probably we still will be looking, kind of rough around the edges. I think that is a small business, Island Tile.
Island Tile.
So they may not have been able to, to fix it the way it is now, and the other ones as well. So I'm supporting the recommendations coming from the three CRAs.
Yeah, and then also that same corridor, I mean, you got Glenn's Tires,
Yeah.
Randy Carmichael, also took advantage of that, and look at, we're starting to redevelop the South Melbourne area, which has taken a long time to do, so it's a good investment.
It's stellar.
Yep, all right,
Mayor,
yeah, Ms. Moore.
can we flip back to the previous slide? Thank you. The one, I'm looking here. The second series of pictures, which ones are those, Cindy?
The first under the before, they're the same building and pretty much the same sides of the building. Just the before is the before view and the after is the current view today. One of them, the bottom ones are the frontage on O'Galley Boulevard, and the top ones are along the little alley along the eastern elevation of the building.
That's what I needed, thank you. Mayor, that, the enhancement that was created by that grant is unbelievable. On that building, the roof was falling in. There was a furniture business in one side of it. The floor was rotted. I mean, I can just go on and
Right.
on and on. And it was going to be a really derelict building if they didn't have this grant, which really made a tremendous difference to it, and the backside of the building. And that's one of our main thoroughfares, that on O'Galley, where you're coming across from the causeway. If you're trying to picture where this building is across from Ace Hardware. So this grant program, I know we don't always like to spend money, but this is enhancing our city. This is doing something to make it look more viable and certainly much better. There was a discussion about one of the buildings in O'Galley that I would not do a grant program for, and that's the old Dr. Joe's building, which is very unfortunate that we were stuck with that derelict building. It's the one with the shark on the side of it.
Yeah.
And they have not asked for money, but there's a difference between people who let a building deteriorate and do nothing with it, and people who have a viable business in it and want to enhance the property. That's where I draw the distinction.
We've got some buildings in downtown Melbourne that way. The owners are not taking good care of it.
Exactly. So I have to kind of support what the CRAs have proposed here.
I do too, and they go through a process. They, the application, and those CRA boards determine.
Mr. Alfrey.
Mayor,
Mr. Alfrey.
I want to make sure we are on the same page here. Okay, we are not saying, let's get rid of this. We are not saying, take money out of their pocket. We're just asking that the business owners hold on to the property for at least 5 years, and if they don't, because they're gonna get a capital gain on that, is that they repay a portion if they don't. On this, it definitely would be probably about 11 or 12%. These buildings wouldn't even count. They would get the whole amount. That's all we're asking. Because I know the comments you're making now, we're now doing redevelopment. I agree, we're doing great things together. We are, and I agree with you. I just want to make sure we're on the same page, what we're asking. That's all.
Yeah, but I don't agree with the fact that they have to sign a document that says they have to stay on that property for 5 years. That I disagree
Well,
with.
that's not what that's we're not on the same page, Mayor. What we're asking is that up to 5 years, they get to keep, 20% a year, they get to keep, and then up to 5 years. If not, if I was to go purchase a building and they still owed, they got $20,000 in taxpayer money, I would have no problem because I'm going to pay more money for that building. I would go, all right, you still owe amount on this facade, I will pay that amount. I will pay that additional amount because these sellers are making money. They're flipping stuff, and I see it every day in the market.
The whole city's making money. So
I
it
agree.
is an improvement not only for the downtowns, but for the whole city
But
as a whole.
people should not be making money off taxpayer dollars. That's what I mean.
It's just an improvement. In some cases, they may pay $20,000, but they invest, over $150,000? So it depends on the application too, but I'm not gonna put any restrictions on the owner.
So you just want to give it away?
No, I'm not giving it away. We are making improvements by using this program.
Ma'am, we are, I agree, and
Right.
there's some
But I
great
think
work
you're-
been, but you're giving it away.
You're restricting, and that's the part I don't like. And that's, the CRAs didn't like it either, so I'm gonna go with the CRA's recommendation. Just leave it alone.
Mayor?
Miss Thomas.
I just have to say that the fact of the matter is that this went to all three of our CRA boards, and all three CRA boards unanimously stated that they don't see that we should be changing this. And I agree with that. We've already shown historically that 6 out of 54 have changed hands, and that's it. So we don't have this big turnover that's occurring right now. Basically, what's happening is that we're in partnership with these business owners to make these improvements to the area, and whether that business owner continues to own that building or not, we got exactly what we asked for. We wanted an improvement in a building, and as we can see by these pictures, they are greatly improved. So I support this.
Okay. All right, so at this
Yeah.
point, Ms. Lopez.
I happen to agree with Mr. Alfrey. I mean, we're giving away money for improving these properties. They look great. I'm glad we're doing it. But I don't want the money thrown away. I mean, even though the property is still there and it's still looking good, but these people know that they're going to sell that property and accept $20,000 for it. I think that's so unfair. And I would gladly sign a document for $20,000 value to my property. I don't have a problem with that. So I'm sorry, I agree with him, and
All right.
I approve this.
Mayor,
Ms. Moore.
the pictures that we're looking at on O'Galley Boulevard right now, those people have the money that's been given to them. They've been in there longer than 5 years. If we flip back on the other one from, thank you, they have been in there longer than five years.
Yeah.
It's really rare that somebody moves out unless there's a financial hardship or some such thing. But overall, I have to trust the CRAs and on their choices on this. They are really pretty well vented on this. They don't just arbitrarily give away the money. So
I don't see a problem.
so can we call the question?
Well,
Do we need to vote on this? It's a discussion.
I don't have a motion on a vote. So at this point, it's going to be as is based on the recommendation of the CRAs. So you make a motion to,
Well, the requested action is,
if you're going to make any changes, which I don't see, I don't have a majority vote on,
well, we have to take a vote. I don't know what we've got.
you're going to take the recommendation of the CRA boards that we will not make any changes.
Mayor,
All right, Vice Mayor Minus.
I move that we leave the CRA facade improvement programs as recommended by the 3 CRAs.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to have the recommendations of the CRA boards, which is making no changes, correct, Vice Mayor
Yes.
Minus? And second by Ms. Moore. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Egg.
There's 3 nays, Ms. Lopez, Mr. Alfrey, and Mr. Thomas, and I vote aye, and the motion passes, that we make no changes. And thanks to this, all the staff sending it back to the CRAs. We do value their input. Item number 17 is the discussion of a change in preferred site location for a new consolidated police headquarters facility. And Ms. Shannon Lewis, you're going to report on that?
Yes, ma'am.
'Cause I
Thank you,
haven't got
Mayor.
to it yet.
In June, the City Council authorized the calling of a referendum during the 2018 general election to issue general obligation bonds for financing a new consolidated police facility. At that time, we asked for you to accept the space needs assessment report as well as the preferred site. And I know it's hard to tell in this small picture, but the preferred site is the second from the top on that map, just under the northernmost red square, which is our current facility. And that's located at the corner of Apollo and St. Michael. And since that time, we've had some discussions with the airport and their long-term needs and strategies. And with the closing of general aviation, they're going to be rerouting traffic into the airport from St. Michael. And that Site 2 that we had originally brought to you actually makes more sense to them now to be utilized in conjunction with airport uses. So they asked us to take a look at several different sites, 2 of which we've included in your packet tonight, and they're labeled as Site 5 and Site 6. The next one. Yeah, Site 5 is located on Airport Boulevard. This is directly across from the Hilton Rialto and sits back behind Tropical Haven. We looked at this site, and while the site fit here appears to fit on the site, it really is constricted for our use and does not give us any design options. If you recall, what we have now is just our general space needs. We've not designed the building. So this just shows that those facilities can fit, but it doesn't give us many options for configuration and really isn't the best use for our police department. So we then looked at Site 6, which is located on the corner of NASA Boulevard and Airport Boulevard. And while this site is slightly smaller than the one we originally brought to you, it does fit in all of the elements that the police department needed and that was referred to in our space needs assessment. It provides adequate ingress and egress. And while it shows that it fits on the site, we still have our consultant going through the environmental assessment, but it is a cleared site. It was previously developed. And our anticipation is that it will be equal to, potentially less than the site work we have on the current site. It would not affect any of the bond referendum and the cost as we have it set forth. So staff is recommending that we receive council authorization to change our preferred site from the corner of St. Michael and Apollo to this Site 6, which is located on the corner of Airport Boulevard and NASA Boulevard. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lewis. Any questions for Ms. Lewis?
I have a question.
Ms. Lopez?
I would like to know how does the chief feel about changing to site number 6?
I think he was consulted. All right, Chief Gillespie, welcome. You know this is the site where the Christmas parade does their staging. Okay, so we're going to have to, if this goes, we're going to have to figure out where the staging will be for our Christmas parade.
If
Chief,
St.
that's your-
Patrick's Day can move, the holiday parade can relocate.
Chief of Police, Melbourne. So, we're amenable to the change. We've taken a look at the site and the way that it fits on the property, and we feel that we have adequate egress to get in and out. of the facility at different locations. And it provides us the training ground, which is part of the landscape. I think it's behind the parking lot that allows us to utilize that area for some training as well outside. And so we definitely, of the two, like it better than the number 6, better than number 5, because of the residential component as well. And as far as making it from St. Michael's, where we're at now, we're able to accommodate that. I think it'll work out just fine.
What kind of training are you doing in the parking lot? Isn't this Kaiser College parking lot?
Well, no, it would be behind our parking lot. It's in the...
Oh, you're talking about...
it's within the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we would do, sometimes we
talking
have
about the
canine training. I mean, we're looking for different areas to do things like that. So there's a variety of different things that we would do potentially. But it's nice to have it right there on site to where we can do that. We're not able to do that right now.
Okay.
And Ralph gets upset when we go over to his property and start running the dogs around.
All right. All right. Mr. Alfrey?
Yeah, I assume we still do field force training?
I'm sorry?
We still do field force training?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that it's basically, as the chief would explain, you need a lot of room for the officers to line up, and you, I guess you would say, go ahead.
Demonstrations and any kind of civil disturbance type thing, we would be able to utilize it for that. And then there's a couple other things that we could do as well. So that would enable us to still, even though it's a smaller property, it will still give us that ability. It's not that far from where we're at. And as long as we can get out in multiple locations and go different directions without holding the officers up, I think we're going to be fine.
That's right. Yeah. Mr. Thomas?
And that's what I was looking at too. It looks like that site number 6, you're going to have easier access to the major transportation corridors, which I think is going to be better for you guys compared to what the first site was. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important. As you pointed out, that's very important to us.
All right. Any other comments?
Okay, I'm sold. I support it.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
good. All right, thank you, Chief. So, council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Yeah, Vice Mayor Minus.
I move to approve site plan on the northeast corner of the Airport Boulevard and NASA Boulevard as preferred police headquarters facility location.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval to accept Site 6 as stated in council's package by Vice Mayor Minus, second by Ms. Moore. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Next is petitions, remonstrances, and communications. Do I have any sign-up sheets, Ms. Weiser? No? All right. Council, any comments, concerns? Ms. Thomas?
I just want to thank the city, the University Boulevard West. It looks very nice. The paving that's been done on there, I know a lot of people have complimented it. We've also, the way it was set up where the lines were put, it's a lot easier for the kids that are using their bicycles or skateboards, that kind of thing, and a lot more safer than the way it was previously. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, very good. Any other comments?
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Alfrey.
I think council remembers about the dog park that we were talking about a while back about Ruffner, and we had some...
Ruffner. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. We had some issues there with it being closed. I want to inform the council, I've been working with Mr. Brisky and his staff. We found an alternate location on Southwest Park. We're working on the diagramming now. There's a part of Southwest Park which is on the east side that's not used. They're mostly fenced in. It's got pavilions, water, all that. So Mr. Brisky feels that they're a very good location. It helps our parking. We have parking a little bit away, a little bit of a jog, maybe not a bad jog for the city manager, but longer for us. But there are restrooms that are a little bit away, so it kind of meets our needs a little bit better. So I just want to let you know I'll be coming back to you probably with Mr. Brisky on this, because we're probably going to look to get it going here very soon. But I just wanted to inform council, know that's where we are, and that if you hear any comments, Ruffner Park is out.
Okay.
And Mayor,
Yeah,
I just
Ms.
want to
Thomas.
add to that. It was very interesting. We ended up having the community come in for Ruffner Park, and they really spoke. They did not want it there. And the more I looked at the plans, it didn't work for it. But I have gone and looked at this other park, and it does look like a very good place. There aren't a lot of homes right around there. There's an apartment complex, but it's got a fence, the whole bit. So I think it's going to be a much better place.
All right, very good.
Yes,
Sounds
thank you.
good. Mr. McNeese?
I had one thing, now it's two. I hate to correct Councilman Alfrey in public, but every jog is bad, even for the city manager. Secondly, this afternoon, I had my little television on in the office and kind of in and out, keeping one eye on the Weather Channel. And I watched three different times, mayors from different towns, Morehead City was one, and I can't remember the other two, come to the microphone. So I stopped, turned it up, and listened to them speak about what they're going through. And I just kind of bring it up tonight because as a point of perspective, our brethren up there are about to get really hammered. And it reminds us of what we've been through the last couple of years and how, for the grace of God, that hurricane lottery could be ours too. There's a whole bunch of storms out there. It looks like for the moment we're free from all of them. So just as a point of perspective, say a prayer tonight for our friends up there.
Sure am.
They're in for a rough time the next week or
That's
so.
about the same time we went through with Irma. Because I looked at my calendar, and of course Dennis, my husband, had to take him to the emergency room.
The one thing
He had a heart attack.
The one thing I heard today
after.
that really struck me, they were talking about how slow moving the storm is and where the pressure systems are and such. They're expecting a pretty significant surge. And they were saying that the storm surge could actually remain in place for up to 4 or 5 high tide cycles.
That's right.
And that was just, I didn't even know how to take that. It's just that it could go and then just be there for a couple of days. So they're going to be in it, and just wanted to I just say kind of they're in my thoughts, and everybody say a prayer for those folks tonight. They're going to have a tough week.
That's right.
Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Lopez.
I just want to mention that FPL is sending quite a cruise up there to help them. So hurrah for FPL.
Yep, I agree. So let's pray for him. All right, if there's nothing else. Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Minus. I'm sorry.
Okay, Mayor, just want to remind council about the Melbourne Police Community Relations Council meeting tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at Carver Park. 7 o'clock at Carver Park. Come out and voice your concerns or whatever, and we'll have our coffee with the chief.
Okay.
Next month, October the 11th, is our forum. So that is where everyone is invited anyway. But we have a forum with the 3 police chiefs, the state attorney, our wonderful sheriff, the public defender, probation officers, judges. Judge Dugan is going to be there. He looks forward to that every year. So, and also this year we're going to have, who asked to be involved is the city clerk's office. There are a lot of issues that go on, where the paperwork and all is not done or done correctly, and they would like to be there also. So. It is definitely very interesting. There will not be any political information at all. Okay. Not in the building, or maybe in the parking lot, but not in the building.
Okay, very good. All right. If there's no other comments, I'll adjourn the meeting. 9 o'clock.